The portrait of you where you're holding a mask. I was wondering about where is this mask coming from, and why did you choose this mask specifically?
It is a Venetian mask, and it represents death. It's a death mask, and it comes from the time when there was pest in the Black Death in Venice. Many thousands of Venetians have died. And it is a very popular mask that they use in the carnival. So, of course, the only certainty we have now is what?
Death.
No. Life and death. You're still alive. But for sure you will die. It's the only thing you can rely on. Nothing else. Everything else is a big question mark. So that's the reason. And the other thing is, of course, that mask is a very liberating thing. People who put on masks dare to do things they would normally not dare. That's why also the Christian church has all those, they used to give people freedom to have carnival, because then they can do all kinds of foolish things, all the things they would normally, under daylight with their own face, they will not dare to do. So they allow to have masks. Origin of theater.
Does mask symbolize theater for you?
Mask can symbolize theater, but it is, it's the fantasy that you can become somebody else is the most beautiful thing of theater and of art. So mask is a symbol of becoming something else. And it's a very beautiful feeling, because everybody has hang-ups about himself. I don't like my nose, I don't like my ears, I don't like my chin, I don't like this. But when I put on a mask, I can be just something else. And that is a wonderful thing.
Death and love is one of the main topics that you use. Would you agree with that?
Every work I've ever made is about love and death. But I always forget it's about life, love and death. So it's a triangle. Not only love and death is not enough, it's not interesting enough. But very strange, there was a great literary scientist that lived in Germany. His name was Marcel Reich-Ranitzky. He was a Polish-Jewish person who was really the greatest expert in any kind of literature. And he just died recently, and I didn't know. I just saw his last interview, and he said, there are all those writers writing about this and that and this and that and all kinds of stories, and it's unbelievable what's possible to say in literature. But basically, if you scratch all the nonsense away, it's all about love and death. Basta. So I'm glad I'm not alone to say that.
Love has a lot to do with life.
Yes, but I don't mean love in a romantic sense, of course also, or love in an erotic sense, of course also, but love for anything, love for dance, love for theater, love for art, love for nature, love for hell, I don't care, but what makes you tick, what makes you interested, what makes you being a live human being, this is what I mean by love. It's a multiple complex thing.
If you hear love for first sight, what do you think?
Did you fall in love on first sight sometimes in your life?
I did. I believed I did. I don't know if I really did. Maybe this is the question what I would like you to answer. What do you think, is falling in love for first seeing somebody an illusion, or is a deeper transcendent connection that one person feels in another?
Sometimes it doesn't even have to do with the object or the person that you see. Sometimes it's just you. Sometimes you just happen to be in this kind of vulnerable moment in your life. And it does not have to be that person. It could have been another person. It's because you are ready and receptive to love. That's what I think. But sometimes it's different. Sometimes there are objects, there are people that have a certain charisma that is compatible with your own charisma. And that is something I cannot describe. This is something very unique, and I see it not only when I can feel a person. I don't even have to see a person. I can feel a person over there that has a charisma that I'm very receptive to and very vulnerable to. Sometimes it's in an exhibition that I go through a gallery and I don't see the painting, but I feel there is some charisma coming out of there. And then I turn and I realize there is something that speaks to me, a language that I understand. So it's a complicated thing. It's not a thing you can put words to so easily. It's a almost metaphysical sort of experience.
What was there in Stuttgart that made so many great choreographers?
That was John Cranko. He was a Renaissance person. He knew a lot. He was very intelligent and very intellectual. He read a lot. He was interested in different art forms. And he was a real magnet for talent. And that's what made him really great. He was a magnet for talent. A remarkable man.
If I wouldn't know you're a choreographer and living in this age, you'd be a Medici or somebody who supports art. And I don't know if that comes subconsciously when I think about your work and how you approach theater, but also as you appear with your beard, this has a certain meta-communication.
I will kill you one day. Of course, Renaissance was a great period of art which had opened so many doors that were closed in the Middle Ages. So I'm very flattered that you compare me to somebody from this time, and it was the time when different arts influenced each other, which was very important and very beautiful. And if you think of the great Renaissance personalities, of whether it was Medici or if it was Leonardo da Vinci, they were polyhistorists. They were people who knew a lot of things. They practically knew everything that was known at that time. This is, in our time, totally impossible. The last polyhistor was Leibniz in the 18th century. Nowadays, people only know tiny little facets of knowledge today. If you talk about physics, if you talk about biology, people know only just a particular part of physics, particular part of biology. So we are so interdependent nowadays. If you know, I made a film, and I used in the film a whole pyramid of my own furniture, of the flat where I was born, because my mother became 100 years old. She had to go out of the flat, so I didn't need the furniture, so I made a film with the furniture. And there is a person climbing naked on top of this furniture. It's very symbolic. It's old, ugly, Belle Epoque furniture, like 1880, 1890, this dark, scary. And I was talking to people about it, and I said, you know what it represents? Can you imagine how many people looked at it, how many people sat on those chairs or at the table, or how many people opened that cupboard? It's thousands and thousands of people who dealt with it. But if you look at the table has a little brass foot, little protection on the foot. You know how many people contributed just to make that bit of brass? Somebody had to discover the mine somewhere in Africa or South America. They had to dig the hole. People had to climb in. They had to get the rock out. They had to melt the rock. They got a little bit of brass. Then they sold it to somebody. Somebody who sold it gave it to an artist. Then he made this thing out of that. Then it was sold, and a graveur made this. But this is, I'm talking about only this little foot of this little furniture. So there were hundreds of people involved in making that tiny little thing. Can you imagine how many people contributed to make this? Now, and this is relatively simple. You know how many people contributed to make a mobile phone like this? It's the entire Earth almost. It's incredible. So the problem of today is that we operate things, we totally do not understand how they function. In the Renaissance time, people operated things they could understand.
Speaking of technology, do you prefer reading an e-book or you prefer to have the traditional book in your hand when you read?
I read very little, and if I read, I prefer to read a book. I like the sensation of having. In this way, I'm very old-fashioned. I like to page. I like to smell a book. In that way, I'm very old-fashioned. Yeah.
It's interesting. Already in the 21st century, not many people wear beard, and especially in the dance world, not many dancers wear beard. But it's an interesting fact that many choreographers wear beard. What do you think? Why this could be?
It gives you authority. I tell you a funny story about beard. I was sitting in Tokyo in a hotel and had breakfast with Maurice Béjart, and I said to him, "Maurice, your beard is blue." And he said, "Oh yeah?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh shit, well, I buy this little water, you know, in the shop over there, and I painted a little bit. I thought it was black." And I said, "No, well, it's actually blue." I said to him, "But why do you do it anyway?" He said, "You know, the problem is that my hair is really black, but my beard is gray. So people ask me, why do you dye your hair? So I dye my beard and everybody leaves me in peace."
That's interesting.
I don't know, many choreographers' beards. Balanchine didn't have a beard. Robbins did. Kranko didn't. Kranko tried to have a beard once, didn't fancy it. It scratched him all the time. Who else? Macmillan never had a beard. Roman Petit never had a beard. Billy Forsythe, Pina Bausch didn't have a beard.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it's just the younger ones that have.
I don't know the philosophy of beards, but it's one thing that can change your face. You know, people, it's basically your hair, you can do something about, or your beard. You can do a lot of things with your cheeks and with your nose, but that costs a lot of money and a lot of pain. Dance is one of those arts that has the potential to attract other art forms. I think that's very, very important for dance and very beautiful. And I think that is the next big step for dance, to take dance out of theater, take it into galleries, into musea, take it on location, take it to new places. It's happening all the time, but I think it's important.
It is happening with other genders as well, but somehow less with dance, or later. What do you think, what's the reason of this?
You know, the problem of dance, the historic problem with dance is that it's the most underdeveloped art form, because we had no record of dance. Everything else is recorded. Literature is older, music is older, of course sculpture and painting, architecture, everything is older. I mean, dance is actually, the recording of it is older. But the oldest art form is dance. It's older than music, older than anything, and older than literature, and the most personal art form. But the tragedy that there is no record of how people danced makes us have to reinvent it all the time. And also the problem is that dance was always forced to be successful. I tell you what I mean. If I'm a composer and I want to say something that people do not understand today, but will understand maybe in 50 or 100 years, I write the music and I put it into the drawer. But if I, in the traditional sense, if I want to make a choreography that I think people don't understand now, people will understand in 100 years. It's not possible. It's now. Dance you have to do now. Nowadays you can make a recording, but I'm talking about the traditional way, like let's say 17th, 18th, 19th century. You had to make instant success. You could not write something so avant-garde in dance that people wouldn't understand and hope to be discovered in 100 years. Big handicap for dance. Not for painting, not for literature, not for music.
And since there was no recording, what do you think made certain productions survive hundreds of years? I'm thinking, for example, the big classical stories of classical ballet.
They haven't survived. They are all changed over the centuries. They haven't survived. If we would see the original La Sylphie, the original Swan Lake, we would be shocked. We would not recognize it.
I see. Have you ever thought about recreating with your tools a classical ballet story?
Never.
You always wish to tell your own stories.
I'm not particularly a storyteller, but I prefer to write my own poetry. Yeah.